Hey guys, this is that ghost story I promised 10 years ago. Life got pretty busy and I just haven't been around to get it done. Um, this is a ghost story from my childhood. I was probably 14, 15 years old and I was at summer camp. It was a 2 week summer camp, and while there, I met a young girl named Linda Hampton. She'd standing out all by herself by a pond. Um, so I walked up to her. We struck up a conversation. 2 weeks into this, we were madly in love, 14, 15. I mean, we had it bad for each other. Well, when we got home, because summer camp did end, she was only 30, 40 miles from my hometown. So the first thing I did is pick up the phone and call her. She answered the phone. This went on for about a week, 2 weeks. Well, after professing our love and her driving me absolutely crazy, I gathered up all the money I could, took a single shot shotgun, broke it down, stuck it in a guitar case, climbed on a Greyhound bus. This is like 1974. Kids were crazy back then. And I got on this Greyhound bus, went to Hot Springs, Arkansas, got off the bus, walked 10 miles from the bus stop, and there she is walking up the road. Well, we run like in Romeo and Juliet together and did all the kids stuff. It was actually kind of ridiculous, but we get up to her house. She said, "I live there. Greg Youngblood lives right there." And she goes, "Come on, I'll show you where you can camp, where you can stay." So she turns right and walks up this pig trail of a gravel road, just two wagon wheel ruts running into the forest. Um, we walk up this road, and there at the end of the road in this big old forest was this abandoned farmhouse. The back porch had caved in, but it still had a living room and a bedroom, and it had a fireplace. And she goes, "You can camp here. We play down here all the time." And I said, "Okay, fine." And there was an old chicken house beside it, and she said, "But it's late. I can't hang out tonight. Maybe back later, but I got to go home and check in and eat dinner." I said, "Okay, bye." So I set up my camp in the living room, and I get all cool about it, and sleeping bags here, and I'm having all these fantasies about Linda showing back up. Well, sure enough, about 9:30, 10 o'clock that night, she shows up, boom, just like clockwork. And she'd brought Greg Youngblood with her, her friend. So we all just sat around the fire and talked and goofed off and did kids stuff. Well, it got to where Greg and her would show up, and I would just sit on the porch with her on the front porch, and we'd hold hands and we'd kiss and we'd neck, and we were looking for privacy. And neither one of us knew what to do with the other one. Well, this went on for about 2.5 weeks. Okay, we never consummated our relationship because neither one of us knew what to do with the other one. One evening when she showed up, and she'd always show up right about dark or just after dark, um, I took my pocket knife and I carved our initials on a tree. Linda Hampton loves, okay, William Gallagher, with a big cross plus sign in the middle of it, as kids want to do. And I mean, it was a foot across. Well, anyway, we kissed, you know, fondled the hell out of each other. We're madly in love. Well, 3 weeks into this, one day I just got a wild hair while she was gone, and I walked up to the general store with my stuff, and I said, "Hey, I'm a runaway." They called the police. They take me home. As soon as I get home, I call Linda to tell her I'd gone home. No answer. Nothing. Called and called and called. Finally, one day, the phone was answered, and it was the operator saying that there was no such number, that this number had been disconnected or whatever. And I lost Linda. Gone. Poof. 2, 3 years passed. No, I even wrote a letter. Nothing. No return. No nothing. 2, 3 years passed, and I could drive by then, and I had, had a car. And so me and a friend hopped in the car and drove to Hot Springs. And while we're driving to Hot Springs, I said, hey, let's run by Linda. I told him about the story, and I said, let's run by Linda Hampton's house and surprise her. I haven't seen her in 3 years. Let's just see how she's doing. So we pull up to the house where she lived. Okay, and I knocked on the door. Boom, boom, boom. Old woman answers the door, and I said, "Is Linda here?" And she goes, "Linda?" And I said, "Yeah, Linda Hampton." And she goes, "There's no Linda Hampton that lives here." And I said, "Are you sure?" And she goes, "Son, I've lived here all my life. There's never been a Linda Hampton in this house." Boom! Slams the door. So I stood there for, what the hell? I mean, it's only been 3 years. So I go across the street to where Greg Youngblood lived. Boom, boom, boom. Knock on the door. No Greg Youngblood. He didn't live there either. And I knew I was in the right area. I mean, I knew it. I mean, I have a good memory when it comes to where I've been and what I've done. So I sit there with my friend Tommy, and I said, I'm freaking out. Tommy said, well, maybe it's the wrong spot. And I said, tell you what, let's go to the old farmhouse. So we hopped in my car and we drove up the gravel road to the old farmhouse. We get to the farmhouse, and as I pull up in the driveway of the farmhouse, the chicken shed, the old chicken barn, is still there. It's just caved in though. But the house had burned completely to the ground. I mean, this high. It was nothing but a pile of ashes with the old fireplace sitting right up in the middle of it. So I stood there and I thought, this is just weird as hell. And, rationale, I said, kids eventually finally burned it down accidentally. And so I stood there thinking, wow, no Linda, no Greg. Very surreal. And I walked over into the ashes, and there was a little blue bottle. And on the bottle, it said LH. And the bottle was full of sand from the Gulf of Mexico, I think Fort Walton or something. And it had her initials on the bottle, a little tourist souvenir. And I thought, oh, wow, Linda Hampton. And I stuck it in my pocket. And I'm just thinking, this, freaking me out. And as I'm walking back to the car, I look up to the tree. And there on the tree is the plus. And it said, Linda Hampton, William Gallagher. I think Linda was a ghost. And to my dying day, I always will. Okay. Thanks, guys.